and welcome back to another episode of On Repeat, the podcast. This is the weekly music podcast where we delve into the minds of some of our favourite artists and get under the hood of their creative process and, of course, why they do what they do. And this week is no different. We have such a treat in store for you, and I really do mean treat, as we speak to the wonderful trio that is Elder Island. So Elder Island are a Bristol-based band made up of vocalist and cellist Katy Sargent, bassist and beat maestro Luke Thornton, and guitarist and synth master David Havard. And I think that just by mentioning the broad range of instruments that are included in their portfolio of what they do, this is reflected in their unique sound. The band effortlessly blend and transform genres such as electronica, indie, pop and neo-soul, and then just create something entirely of their own. And they've really carved out their own genre-defying space in the musical landscape, and they're just so exciting to listen to. I think that you can really hear just how much they've transformed the genres in their newest track, Purely Educational, which is taken from their forthcoming album, Swimming Static. I've had the track on all week. I've had it on repeat, no pun intended. And I find that like the punchy kind of synth and the funk-led bassline have just been a bit of a work-from-home anthem. I just can't stop listening to it. It is such an earworm. So definitely go and check them out. And yeah, thank you so much to Elder Island for coming to speak to us. It was super exciting to have them on the show in a very wet and snowy February. We've never interviewed a band before, and I think that we did a pretty good job, so do let us know in the review. So yeah, some of the topics that we discuss this week are their forthcoming album, Swimming Static, which was recorded at their home studio, pretty much all in lockdown. We also talk about how they build their live shows and the immersion behind them, plus how they collaborate and work together as a trio, which is something that we've not really got to discuss so much from the entire band. It's sometimes like one person in the collaboration. So it's so interesting to have all three voices speaking to us. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking so we can get on with the interview. If you want to find out more about Elder Island, please do follow them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Elder Island. It's all the same handle across all the platforms. And don't forget to check out their music wherever you get yours from. We will have the pre-save link in our Instagram bio. If you like what me and Ellie are doing here at On Repeat, don't forget to leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. It's totally free. Follow us on Spotify if that's why you're listening. And of course, just tell all your friends that you like what we're doing, or slide into our DMs on Instagram. You can find us at On Repeat, the podcast. So yeah, that's it from me. A longer than usual intro. And without much further ado, Elder Island.
It's really exciting to speak to you a lot. And actually, we must say this is our first podcast where we've spoken to more than one person as our kind of interviewees. So we're just conscious of that and leaving enough space. So I guess for people who are listening, it'd be good to kind of introduce you, I suppose. So do you wanna go for it?
Who wants to go first? Katy?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm Katy Sargent, and I sing and play cello in Elder Island.
Hi, I'm Luke. I play the bass and the drums in Elder Island. I also we all mess around on instruments. So the studio, it's a whole bunch of instruments that we can.
And hi, I'm Dave, and I play the guitar and keys, mostly, in Elder Island. But yeah, that's very much in a live sense. We have our kind of instruments that we play, but when it's studio-based, it's anything goes.
Oh, nice. That sounds exciting. So you're all like very much multi-instrumentalists, kind of trying your hand at different things when the sort of time is necessary.
Yeah, for sure learning. For sure learning as well.
Are you lot in a bubble at the moment?
Yeah, we've been in a bubble since the beginning of lockdown, really.
So what's it like being in a sort of band bubble? I guess that's ideal. Does it ever get a bit difficult?
Straight in.
It definitely has its ups and downs. It's had its up and down this year, but I mean,
here we go.
Me and I used to live in this house. This is Luke's house, and this is where we have the studio,
which is down in the basement.
Yeah, and I've literally only in the last 2 weeks just moved out, but Katy lives very locally as well, so we've been very like closed in the whole of lockdown here.
It's been a close lockdown.
Yeah.
I kind of imagine it would be, I mean, I don't know, but I imagine it'd be quite nice having a lockdown in Bristol. I mean, I'm comparing it to London and Leicester, I suppose, but Bristol's always been one of those places for me that I just think, oh, people are so cool from Bristol. I wish that I grew up in Bristol, like, or lived there at some point. How has it been for you lot kind of doing your thing in Bristol? Because I think a lot of people assume that London's like the centre and the heart of the universe sometimes for music and things like that. Are you happy to be there? Do you think there's any advantages of being in London, or would you want to come to London? How do you feel about it?
We did used to, didn't we? We talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, at uni, we spent time in London. I know you were here for a few months, and I spent time in the summer here. Like we have a lot of love for London, but there is a different vibe from Bristol because it's such a small city, you know. I can get from one side to the other in an hour by walking it, and it's so diversely different and culturally different in that hour. But you know, I don't know. We've just loved the place. We've always loved the place since like first ever being here, and lockdown here, I guess.
It was more chilled than because we heard stories of London, and I think there was a lot more checking and police presence. Whereas I think we weren't rule breaking here, but it was a bit less clamped down.
Yeah, at times you didn't remember we're in the middle of a pandemic. You'd kind of go out and like, because we live, we're in Montpellier here, so we've got the St. Werburghs around the corner and they've got the Mounds. So just walking out that way, you feel like you're in the countryside within like 5 minutes, and you forget that you're like, oh yeah, we're supposed to be locked away right now, aren't we? And not doing anything.
Yeah. I guess it also is, I always think of, Bristol, being a very like walkable city as opposed to London, where you're on public transport all the time. It is really nice that you can just like walk and leave and be in a different place. And as you said, somewhere so like diverse and different. And then thinking about like prior to lockdown, that long ago time, how did the city kind of like influence your sound? Because you're quite like a mix of genres, and growing up in Bristol, I've always thought that it's really musically diverse and there's like a corner of every kind of sound, and I'd love to know how that kind of influenced you.
I think subconsciously that is everything.
Yeah, what you said, there's a corner of every sound, and it kind of culminates in a lot of our music that we draw from a lot of different influences.
We've been doing interviews recently, and this question comes up quite a lot. But the way you've said it is basically how we would articulate it as well. Yeah, there is so many different spots and so many different musical genres of everyone in their own, I don't know, collectives or groups that like doing their own thing really well. And there's so much to see it that you can just go out on a night out and then end up tagging along with somebody else and seeing something completely new. It is beautiful. I miss it. I miss, last year's just been a killer because it's like, it was lovely weather and it was just like, I had so much, I just really wanted to go out. When it came to September, I felt like getting robbed a little bit of the summer. It's like, no, I don't want the sun to go. I don't, but I guess that's why we're in a lockdown now, because it wasn't stricter.
You lot were speaking about uni. So is that where you met, or how did you guys sort of get together?
So me and Luke have known each other since we were like 3 years old. We went to the same reception, and our parents were good friends because they played tennis together. And then Luke went to a different school, so we sort of separated like after year 2. But because of our parents being friends, we still saw each other now and again. And then when we were like 16, 17, when we were like playing in teenage bands at our school, we kind of like started to merge schools a bit and sort of playing in bands across that way.
I guess it got to college, didn't it? So it was like, okay, college and starting to drive. Driving is kind of everything down in like Bournemouth, the New Forest way, because
so otherwise you get dropped off by your mum.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you need that freedom. Yeah, and we've always just listened to music and made music.
Yeah, and then sort of when it came to uni, Luke went to Newport and I went to Bristol. And then coming to Bristol, I met Katy in university there. And then we started living together from the second year in a shared house. And Luke was coming to Bristol a lot at that point and sort of staying with us.
Sleeping in the kitchen.
Yeah, but we weren't doing anything sort of music-based. And I guess once Luke got his own place in Bristol, we were starting to go around and sort of jam at Luke's a bit again and starting to play music while we were studying all our art degrees. But it wasn't until like the third year that we actually started to make music, I guess. We found like Katy started to sort of play around with the cello a bit and then started singing. And that's when we were like, oh, there's something here.
What was like what was your teenage bands? What did they sound like?
I've never heard them. Why are you hiding these?
When I went home over, I think it was over Christmas. Because my mum hoarded everything from like when I was a small child. Everything I've ever done or made, she's got it stored away at home.
Was it you that found your teeth recently?
No.
Oh wow!
I'd be pretty worried if I found my teeth, my baby teeth stored away. No, but I found some of our old like demos that we made when we were like 17 in bands. Yeah.
What were they like? It was like Arctic Monkeys infused with, I guess, a bit of LCD sound system.
Nice. I actually quite like the sound of that.
It was quite erratic, actually. It was like we had this amazing drummer, and yeah, we just used to. It had quite a mental like structure. I just remember, like it would chop, it would do one thing, and then it would chop and do something else. Quite similar to Arctic Monkeys and that. I don't know. It was weird. I hope it doesn't get put up or isn't still up. It might be still up on MySpace, actually.
What was it called?
No, let's not
go down that route.
It's interesting you talking about making music in third year, but, not doing too much before then. But it sounds like you were doing a lot in your own way, sort of developing your taste. But it's interesting how you also developed that together. I feel like that's quite unusual because when I feel like a lot of bands get together because they're like, okay, yeah, we can play these instruments, let's go. Or even thinking about like, those boy bands that are just like put together and completely like engineered really precisely. You lot seem so much more sort of organic, and it seems like you had a lot of time to develop friendships before. Do you think that's been quite an important part of your music making as well?
Definitely. I think a lot of the basis of our music, like the rock, is our friendship that's kind of held through. So definitely everything that you just said.
Because it was always based around us sharing music with each other and just being passionate about the same kind of music, and we'd go out partying and clubbing with each other all the time in the city, and that was like our education and our love for all those sort of things, and it kind of just bled into wanting to actually keep doing that.
And we didn't, because where we lived, it was quite stimulating because we had like record players and we listened to music all the time. We didn't really have a TV, did we?
No.
So it was all the evenings was just like messing about, listening to music.
Yeah, because it was like a lot of the people like that me and Katy lived with, like one of them was really good on guitar and friends would come around and we would just play acoustic guitar and jam around in that kind of way most evenings and just play around.
It's quite folky.
Yeah.
Kind of like hippie environment.
Yeah, because I guess when we actually started, the first kind of stuff we were doing was much more folky. It was just like an acoustic bass, an acoustic guitar, an acoustic cello. And
snare drum. Yeah,
and on a kick drum maybe.
That's quite cool. And how did like the sort of like more synthy electronic kind of sound come in? Because I feel like folk and there's some parts where they like cross over, but they are different genres. And I think of two very different bands when I hear those words.
There's quite a big gap between that. Like when we finished uni, that was like 2010, and our first EP didn't really come out it didn't come out in 2014. So it took us 4 years to basically learn software, learn Ableton, play with synths. Like we bought samplers, and we bought synthesizers, and we bought more loopers, and we were experimenting more. We kind of just grew out of it, didn't we? We kind of we made previous jams, but the ones that we went more towards that were like this musical production.
It's kind of learning the aspect of recording, and then the technology that kind of came with that. It was like learning to play instruments to start, and just the physical playing of an instrument. But then when we wanted to record, it's like, there's no way, we need to learn how to do this. But like getting an audio interface at that time was actually cheap. It was affordable for people like us to do. So then we'd like, okay, let's figure out how to record this. And then each kind of step, it was like, I really want to put this kind of sound in there. How do we do that? How do we create that? And choosing real stringed instruments or real instruments was trying to push the boundaries of that, and then being like, nope, need a synthesizer now.
I like that. I kind of like that sort of puzzle piece of it. I work for Native Instruments, so kind of do a lot on the kind of software production kind of side, which is quite fun, but it can be a bit of a minefield. I think particularly if you know the sound you want to make, but there's like a million different plugins and companies and pieces of software. Like, how do you actually make it? Do you think that there was like one thing, or do you think there was maybe like one piece of software or one piece of hardware that you kind of got and you were like, yes, this is the thing that I've been trying to find and couldn't quite create?
It's a funny question, because I feel like
it's endless, isn't it?
It's endless. Looking for that one piece of hardware is like lodged in Dave's brain like Inception.
I've been on that quest. This is why I still make music. When I find that thing, that's when I'll probably stop, because I've hit it at that point. But yeah, I mean, I'm really passionate about electronics, and I always have been, and that's been very much part of it along the side. So I've been trying to design a product for, I think it's been like 5 years. I've been working on it, slowly trying to tweak it. Then a product comes out that gets close to what I'm trying to achieve. So I jump at that, and then it doesn't quite do it. And I'm like, oh, so I'm back to the drawing board again.
The emotional roller coaster is just so hard to ride with you.
I feel like it's difficult with like so many music things in general like that. Like when you were saying things are a minefield, like you realize how much is there, and then it can become a little bit almost intimidating. I wonder, like, do you like ever find that with just the industry really? Like, do you ever have those moments where you're like, oh, it's so oversaturated? Or how do you like keep going? What keeps you going?
Yeah, the industry.
It does get on our nerves quite often.
Yeah.
It can be quite a tiring sort of thing, the kind of pressure that gets put on you from the industry.
It's a game, isn't it?
Yeah, and the demand that's just like needing to keep momentum and keep rolling with it, and just do, and smash, we need to get this out quicker, and all these sort of things, when it's like, well, all that really matters really is the music is quality, and we're happy with the outcome, and the people that listen to our music appreciate it in the same way. And that's essentially the end goal with it. It's like, if we could just cut out the industry, the middleman, and we can just go direct to fans, that would be the most ideal sort of way to do it.
And when you're writing, do you kind of feel like you write for you, or do you write for your audience as well, or a little bit of both? Like, because I know that so many artists sort of are faced with the challenge of like, how much do we commercialize this versus like how much of this is going to be really like quintessentially us? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we write for ourselves mostly, but I also think that we're kind of bullied by the tracks themselves. Like when the tracks kind of start, they sort of push us around in the way that they want. We follow what we think they should sound like, and we're like falling over trying to make it happen and make the sounds right. And I feel like that sort of quest writes the song. and while we're in that, there's no kind of space to think about, oh, well, what would someone else think? Because you're too busy being like, I need to find a watery sound that will fill this gap.
I really like the sound of that. What is kind of the starting point then for that process? When you're in the studio or wherever you're like writing, creating, whichever space you decide to do that in, how do you start as a trio? Or do you actually, or maybe go away and work on something separately and come together? How does that kind of workflow look?
It starts with, we've got all our equipment. This is the room that we make music in, and we have done for the last 6 years. But we're all basically, we just have Ableton, which we use as more of a tape recorder, really. But all of our kit's all synchronized over MIDI. So we've got all our loopers and stuff all clocked together. So it just starts, someone will start doing something and loop that. And then we're all in time with each other and just start building loops, and we just multi-track record whatever happens.
So they're kind of like live impromptu sessions.
Yeah. We never normally start them with any kind of initial ideas either. It's just sort of like, I'm just going to play on these drums for a bit. Oh, I like that sound, and kind of get a little loop going, and then
somebody else will
start doing
the bassline.
And then Katie normally starts by just oohing away for a bit and like
so much oohing.
Finding some little like oohs and melodies, and like manipulates her voice for a while, but then it kind of starts kicking it off a bit. And then when we're on a roll, it's just like we've changed our setup over the years, but not completely switched it out. We've always just kept adding what we've needed to. So we've kind of mastered these components that we've got.
Yeah, core components.
Yeah, and then try and add to that every time. So we feel very natural with a lot of them. So it's quite quick to be just like, right, yep, in, got a loop down like that. Let's jump to another instrument. Let's try that out. Oh, that sounds crap. Let's get rid of that. Let's try this. And yeah, it just keeps going from there. You've
been writing music together for such a long time. It must be nice because you've probably got like what's the word? Maybe like an intuition about like kind of working together. Can I say that?
Yeah, totally. It's a very free space, actually, I feel, because we're all so close.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you know when you're recording it, and then you spend weeks listening back, or like months in total of listening back to all of the stuff all of the time. So yeah, but it is definitely a safe space in here. It's like, it's up for discussion. And it's, there's no wrong answer. It's like it's better to get it out and let it be out there rather than you just not say anything. And that's what's really good, is that as soon as like you just say what you're thinking, or it's no wrong answer.
That's really nice. Quite therapeutic, really, sounding.
Yeah. Can
actually,
be.
the sessions are very, we can lose hours and hours, well, days and days.
Yeah, and I guess with this album,
weeks we did with this album.
Yeah, it really did at the start. Our process for this album very much, because we started kind of fresh in a way. And it was literally from, I think, like the 2nd of Feb or 3rd of Feb until the 3rd of March. That whole month, I think 5 to 6 days a week, we were just doing sessions. And I think there was like 50 to 60 sessions in total. So it was just like relentless sort of doing it. Everything was different every time, but that was the backbone. From that point, that's what we took to make the album. So it's like picking the best bits, whittling them down, got it down to like 16 or 17 tracks as the initial demos, and then working them some more. So there's still a stockpile that we can go through to like...
Of all the weirder ones.
Yeah.
That's incredible, but it makes a lot of sense, because I was thinking, so you started kind of making music in 2010, and then you said it went to sort of 2014 to release your first EP, and then so that's like a four year kind of learning curve, if you want to call it that, and then you released your album in 2019. And now this is like your second album. So like the gap between 2019 and 21 is actually extremely short. And I guess with some of maybe your previous work, you did have like more of a portfolio to kind of pick from, or maybe like a just longer time. So yeah, was it like kind of stressful to make this second album?
I think you guys felt more like it was fresh. It felt like we were starting from afresh, which was different. But I wouldn't say it was stressful.
No. Had its moments because of the outside world of
later
lockdown. And right at the beginning, it was so unknowing. Like when it just took hold of the country. The whole country is kind of like in this like scared panic. So at first, because that happened, we had been recording for a little while in here. So after that happened, there was like this outside stress where we were kind of, it went a bit weird for like a month or so because we were all just like figuring it out, like looking at like the news and just, I don't know, it was weird.
It was odd because we were basically already in a month worth of lockdown previous to lockdown.
Yeah.
Like, that's how we were making it. We barely left this room. Like Kate was going home, then coming back the next morning, and then we just crack on again all day, like 14-hour days of just playing straight. And then it was like, we wrapped that up, and then it was like, oh wait, what's this? There's a pandemic coming.
And the lyrics, are they a collaborative process as well? Because the track list for Swimming Static, the names on those, they're lovely. Like, they're amazing, and they seem interconnected in their own way as well. But I wondered who are the lyrics sort of down to one person, or is that collaborative?
The names are actually more of a collaborative thing, which is nice that you mentioned it. My lyrics, a lot of them I'll kind of go away, but I'll always consult the guys and talk about or try and hash out what I'm trying to say within them. But the names they're a funny one because it's always like a place marker that you put on, or sometimes it's like I've been singing weird lines on a session and then Dave will think that I've said something, and so he'll type that as the name of the song, and then it just stays.
Like they're all those. A lot of the track names are from the very first session that we do. When we save that project, it gets dated and named a random name, and half the time that stays.
Yeah. Or Dave will be like, "Come on, what are we going to call it? What are we going to call it?
What's it going to be? What's it going to be?"
Cheesecake. It's like, okay.
So did you have a similar thing for your actual band name as well? How did that come about?
Oh, the band name.
That was calculated, actually. It's such a boring
No,
story.
did you actually go on? Because there's that band generator website, like band name generator, where you just keep refreshing it and it comes up with these random words put together, like chocolate jelly or like, I don't know.
We did actually struggle with the naming of the album for this album, and we did start doing where is it? It's like the point marker where it's 3 words, and so everywhere on the globe is marked out by 3 words. And so we did a lot of like, so what's the house? It's like
What's
pink
the basement?
gladiator lovely or something. Oh, okay, maybe. But was it the Elder Island?
That was a lot more calculated. We basically wanted a name that wasn't Elder Island 1709 or something on SoundCloud and like other platforms. It had to be / Elder Island, and we need to make sure we had a band name that was that precise.
We wanted the domain name.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We eventually came up with Elder Island because we had themes of was it like elm? Did we have like just different sort of tree themes?
Yeah.
And like land.
I think we really wanted island in the name.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a band name we had before which we really wanted to run with, and a band had just come out with the same name. Like when we started looking, they were like a brand new band, and we were like, damn, they beat us to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we had the same with the podcast. We were like, On Repeat's a great name. Oh, it's taken. Well, we'll just add.
We'll take it anyway. We'll get better.
I thought it was like a homage to Bristol, because I was thinking of like Turbo Island, Spike Island.
We use that.
Yeah. Next story is that. You'll be like, hang on.
Like you lot have a really nice setup together, being in a bubble and writing music and things like that. Obviously, it's really difficult not being able to play live gigs. I'm sure, we're all as equally heartbroken about that. But I wondered, is there anywhere you would, like any festival or anything that you would all love to play? Like, what would be your dream?
Glastonbury.
Yeah,
we have always wanted to do
Glastonbury.
Park stage.
Yeah, last time I went to Glastonbury was 2010. And I said, I'm not coming back until I'm performing.
Yeah. That's the best way. What about gigs that you have played? What's been your favourite so far?
Any Dublin show. I love Dublin. Dublin is just, my favourite every time.
They are very good to us. Yeah, the first time we played was actually, it caught us off guard. Like, we'd never been to Ireland before to perform. And then I'd never been to Ireland before anyway. But we got there and we played in London the night before at the Jazz Cafe. And we were playing Dublin the night after. So after that show, Luke smashed the drive all the way so we could get the ferry at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
So we got the ferry over and then we arrived and we tried to get a few hours sleep and we were staying at a friend. So it was quite a wild time. We woke the neighbours up when we arrived, which is a bit messy at 7 in the morning. But yeah, and we went down and it hadn't sold out. It was the only one that hadn't sold out on the tour. And we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what was going to happen. And it was the first payday in Ireland that they had since Christmas. And the place sold out that night and it was absolutely wild. We were not expecting that. But the kind of energy levels they'll absolutely lose it. But when the dynamics go down a bit, they'll just shut up. And it's like you can hear a pin drop. And they were creating their own little melodies and chants in these little gaps as well. And that was a real buzz.
How did that feel for you lot? Did you kind of did you really bounce off that energy? It must have been incredible.
Oh, massively. Because we were all delirious.
And we were so tired and we all kind of slunk on stage, feeling completely out of it.
Exhausted.
And then that energy hits you. And that was an incredible gig because it just turned around so quickly because of the energy. It was just I'm in.
Yeah, it's definitely nice talking because I feel like we've had so many conversations about lockdown and creating music in lockdown, but it's kind of nice to have conversations about gigs, I suppose, isn't it? Because that feels like the past and the future, which is just it's just sort of got this warm feeling, hasn't it? And I think it's interesting that you said Glastonbury as well, because I feel like that is that is a brilliant dream. But also the thing about Glastonbury is I feel it's one of those festivals that even if you know nothing about music, you've heard of Glastonbury, and then it brings together people from all sorts of different sort of genres. And it's Dolly Parton, there's the podcast, what's it called, Hattie? Dolly Parton in America or something?
Dolly Parton's America. It's one of my favourite podcasts, would recommend.
It's amazing, would recommend it. And they basically just say how amazing it is that she managed to bring together the most random groups of people who you would just think never get on. But do you feel because your music is, it's genre defying, isn't it? You think that actually it could bring together loads of different people, and Glastonbury would then be a really good space for it. Have you actually experienced that at a gig where you've seen lots of different types of people there?
Yeah, a lot of the shows are like that. They're always quite a diverse mix of people in the crowd, and you can get someone that's in their 60s absolutely having it at the front. And it's amazing to see.
Yeah. Some of our longest and biggest fans have also been quite old. Shout out to Tim from Thornton.
Yeah.
He was at our second gig and just always followed us and showed us to his friends. And there's a huge dynamic range of people listening. It's nice.
What's been your favourite gig that you've gone to, whether that's together or what? I don't know. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind as being a really good experience, just out of interest?
There was a show. Were you there as well, Dave? With Leaky Lee at Thekla.
Oh, that was so good. I'd forgotten.
Yeah, she's so cool.
That was an incredible show. Yeah. I just remember the Thekla in Bristol is a boat, and it's a mad little venue. If you've ever been to it.
Previously owned by Viv Stanchel of the Bonzo Dog Doodah band.
Yeah. But it's a mad old boat, and we saw Leaky Lee. I can never say it right.
I'm not actually sure which one it is.
But I just remember that that was it. Big Jeff, who's also a big name in Bristol.
Yes, I was going to say, Big Jeff been to one of your gigs?
Yeah, he came to one of the first, and it was we've got Big Jeff here.
But Big Jeff was dancing in the crowd, and she got off stage and then just started having a dance off with him. I just remember like the drummer and her had this like amazing like energy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's
like almost sexual tension. And she was like obviously amazing and like oozing sexual kind of prowess anyway. And she took off all these chains. I remember she was wearing loads of chains and she was using them as a percussive sort of sound with the microphone. And then she'd like clambered all over the boat. And it was one of those really sort of in the moment gigs. And on the Thekla.
Yeah. And that was at the time of her first album as well, wasn't it? Like, so it was just like, yes, it was like the best time.
Are those the kind of gigs that you prefer to go to, or even prefer to like put on, like quite, because Thekla is quite small and like intimate in comparison to, I'd say, quite a few venues, as opposed to, I don't know, like a Colston Hall. I don't know. It's the first thing that came up to my mind. Like, you know, like an O2 kind of thing. Do you prefer like the sort of smaller crowds that you can kind of, I feel like you can almost like make out people in the crowd as opposed to like bigger like arena kind of things?
I think there's a better energy about them in some respects because you feel so much more there and present with people when someone can literally be like a foot in front of you. But they're also the ones where you feel so much more nervous about doing.
Yeah.
Like, because they're like so close and it's so much more intimate, you feel so much more on edge. You're a bit more like playing a 5,000 cap venue feels much easier than playing like a 200 cap venue sometimes.
I mean, it's still nerve-wracking.
Yeah, obviously. But it's a different kind of thing. There's a slight separation between you and the crowd then. You don't clock like direct people. You don't like lock eyes with someone in the same way where you can be like, which it happens to me. If I look someone in the eyes, I play the wrong notes all of a sudden and like, like, I know I just need to sort of like focus on what I'm doing.
You talk about this a lot. You must like, are you eyesing everyone in the crowd while you're playing accidentally?
No, yeah, I'm trying to give something a bit more in a performance aspect. And then I like look at someone who's like dead staring me, just like focusing. And I'm just like, oh God.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of do the live differently we've been trying to. If it's a bigger show, we're going to try and put on more of a visual like show that you're going to go see. But when it's smaller, it's like, well, we've got to be the visual thing. And it is, sometimes it can go really right. And you can have this amazing, intimate 300-400 cap crowd, like we were saying with Dublin. But sometimes you can have like a 100-200 cap room that we had in like Hamburg. And like Dave was saying, there was a guy about 2 foot away from me. I was like trying to play and he's just like looking over my equipment as he's doing it. And I'm just kind of like, this is weird.
How do you get over like the kind of the nerves? What are your tips? What do you do?
To a shot of tequila.
Yeah.
I am more wholesome. I like to do a small amount of yoga before we go. And then a shot of tequila.
Yeah, I like chain smoke, like 3 cigarettes, 3 shot of tequila, and all go on stage.
Have you ever had anyone heckle you at a gig?
All the time.
Mostly our friends, actually.
Yeah, our mates like to heckle, and they always have done.
We've got a friend, Tom, he used to come, when he lived in Bristol, he used to come to the big gigs and he always shouted, play some Simply Red. Always like when the crowd had like died down. Did it like 3 times in different gigs.
Oh yeah. One day we'll just start playing it.
Yeah.
That will show it.
It must be, we were talking to a few DJs actually about requests and how annoying it is, because you always think about that, like with DJs, like how many requests do you get? But actually it's true, as a live band, like especially if you're playing at small intimate venues, I guess there'd be a lot of people who are like sitting there like, when are they going to play a song that we know? Or like things like that. And it's like, oh, come on, like we're here playing our own music kind of thing. Do you get that a lot, or do you just, are your audience, do they usually know like it's your stuff?
It's different. It's a mixed bag everywhere. Really, sometimes it feels like that. Like it's felt like that in France sometimes, but that's just, I guess, how they listen to the music. Sometimes,
I suppose festivals, you're always kind of... Festivals are interesting because a lot of the time people are there and they don't know your music. So you have to kind of put on a show to capture them or like get them in and get them to stay. And I suppose the best example of that would be when we played Boomtown. And we didn't even know if we were going to get in because it was such an absolute mad has to get in. But
it was a shit show.
Turned up, they didn't know where we were going. In the end, this guy just slapped a ticket on our van and was like, just drive. But yeah, when we started, everyone was like sat down, cross-legged, and just kind of like staring, kind of taking it all in.
Oh, it was Saturday, wasn't it?
It was Saturday, but in the daytime, and then we started to kind of like build up the set, but at that point our sets would just kind of start slower and then just get faster, and like more hard-hitting dance ones towards the end. And yeah, by the end of it, like just clambering over the tent, like crowds everywhere. It was amazing, just this kind of change from the start to the finish.
Sounds like Boomtown. It really does. Clambering over the tent. I wanted just something you mentioned a second ago was you want to make more of like a visual with your live sets. I'd love to know kind of what you mean by that. I'm expecting like lasers kind of thing. Is that what I'm...
Well, we've been building our own lights for the past...
couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years, 3 years.
I think.
They're like big strobe lights. Strobe lights, like...
LED strips.
Yeah, strip lights. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. And so we've been working on that for quite a while, and it's starting to. Well, we've been programming them when we went to America. Well, everywhere, haven't we? They're basically programmed.
Become our own personal tour package that we can take with us. So we'll always have something visual. But I think like in some of the earlier years when we were like turning up to some spaces and some venues, and you play, and there's just like a static red light on you for the whole night. And like, we're not like we're hopping around the stage, pulling cartwheels and God knows what. We're quite like fixed. We're in our stations of playing. So we wanted to bring in something a bit more visual.
Yeah, because we're always dancing, but yeah, we're kind of stuck with our equipment. So it's not like a visual
It's not like
delight.
I can pick up the drum machines and just walk around the stage.
I feel you should.
Let's design it.
But yeah, it's kind of to give it that little more edge and I suppose a bit more immersive because when we program the lights, they're intuitive to the music, so it all runs off the MIDI that's sent from Luke and Dave. So in all the parts of the songs, they'll change. The lights will change, so they might flash more if it's like a drop, or they'd like be slower if it was a slow part of the track.
The whole intention is to be very responsive to our playing. Because we have like it's not like pre-programmed, we have our parts that we play, but it's all performed live and we move to the next part as we do, and we always extend it some nights we're like, no, let's just keep it short and sweet tonight. So it fully responds to our playing and works in that way as if it's part of our rig itself. Like it was initially designed that you just plug a MIDI keyboard in and you can just play the lights. So it's all programmed over MIDI instead of DMX and stuff like that, because we didn't know the language at that point, but now we're starting to get it a bit, but we also employ lighting engineers now.
That's really nice. So I guess it's kind of like, is it like Max for Live, that kind of DJing kind of side, but with lights?
Not
basically.
As much. We always try and use a piece of hardware, a dedicated piece of hardware if we try and do something, because any experience of laptops that we've used, it's always led to a headache or a crash and needing a second system in place. And it's like, no, let's not bother with that. Let's just get us a dedicated piece of kit that does what it does.
It's kind of an ethos for us, isn't
it? You all know each other very well. What would you say to people, or what is, I guess, like the biggest learning curve of like being in a band? And what would you say to people that are maybe, I don't know, thinking of starting one, but don't really know like how to go about it, or like maybe don't know people that want to make music with them?
That's a tough one, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like making music and you can find people that you like making music with, I think if you can get something together, then just try and put it out in some way and just keep like it's a really hard road to go down, or it's a really long hard road to achieve like this, at the moment. But like, just do it. If you love making music and you want like making music with other people, just keep on doing it. I've got a friend who's making music at the moment, and it's that thing of like, oh, it'd be great if there was a girl singer on it, or if somebody else could play the guitar. I always say to him when things were open, you know, like just go to an open mic night or go to 4 open mic nights, and if you see someone that's just absolutely jamming, go have a chat with them. See if you get on with them. Like, see if they fancy coming around and having a jam, or, you know, recording. And if that can grow, then it's just do it. When you want to take it professionally, use of a better word, or like, you know, really try and make it as a band. I don't know. I feel like you have to know each other, or you don't. Depends how much. It's a weird one.
I always would say as well, especially the first thing you're about to put out, write twice as much music before you put that first thing out. Because otherwise, if you do well off that first one, this is what happened to us especially as well. Like, we put out the self-titled EP. We didn't have any intention of being like, we're going for this, we're going to be real good musicians. We kind of just put it out. Someone wanted to put it out with us, like on a physical copy, and we did. And immediately we were hounded for more music, and we were like, oh, we don't have any. Like, Luke's going away for 3 months, so's Katy, you know, like, we're not going to be making music for a while. So yeah, it's like making, like, if you're going to go do it, double up what you've got.
Yeah, definitely.
I like that. Do you ever go back to like your kind of old things, maybe things you sound for like, I don't know, since 2010? Yeah, do you ever go back to them, listen through and be like, this is actually quite cool, even though it's however many years old?
We've kind of like after, with the first album, we kind of did that. We kind of like wrapped up like what we wanted to use that was ever old.
On Omnitone.
With Omnitone, yeah.
Things like Don't Lose had been hanging around for years. We were just like, right, we finished them, or they're done. Yeah. They don't exist for us anymore.
Yeah, sure. And then with this one, because we've now got loads of new ones that are hanging about, it's kind of like, well, like, yeah, let's, there's quite a few in there that it's like, I want to see that finished, because that's going to be absolutely beautiful when it is finished.
Probably ask the same question, but in a few years' time, and we'll be like, we have too much.
Yeah. I do have one sneaky thing I've got upstairs, which I haven't listened to in a long time, but it was the first thing that we ever recorded together in like 2010 or 2009. It was like,
oh, is that the dub?
Yeah, I like part of my like university project. I was studying graphic design, but I kind of tried to tie making music into it towards the end, and I went and got a dub plate cut of the first 2 tracks that we ever made together.
Oh, cool.
So this thing's only been played like 3 times because it's obviously got like 16 plays before it starts to deteriorate. But one day, that will maybe make its way out into the world.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Actually, that does bring up quite a good point. As how do you actually know when things are finished? How did you know when your album was finished? How did you know when the tracks were done?
It's never finished.
It's really tough.
Question.
It's never. There's always tweaks. Like, even because with this one, because we worked on it more ourselves, producing most of it here, but using like an external mixer, and we've worked with Ali Chant, who we did the Omnitone with a few times on a few of the tracks as well. It helps going to someone else to like solidify the ideas and finish things off, but then also sending it off to mix, and it gets mixed and it comes back and you make your little revisions, and we could keep going. There's always like, just one little go, just push that 1 dB there and just like change that little, like we could, and it's just like, no, it sounds great. It sounds really good.
I think you do reach a point where you actually don't want to even hear it anymore, because we like push things around for so long, you're exhausted by the song, and then you do get to a point where you're like, I don't care. I like it. I don't hate it.
It's so bloody refreshing though when you play it back on Spotify. Yeah. And you're like, like I just forget about anything that I was thinking that I'd push, and I'm just like, it's released. It's
kind of switching to be a listener again instead of like critiquing everything at every point.
It's such a zone, and once you're out of it, it's okay, and you're like, oh well, actually we did good on that.
You did good, buddy.
But that's it. I think it's because like you can get so lost in like overproducing or tweaking, and we do this as well. We like get so like stuck into it and tweaking away. But like if you write a good song, the song's going to be good. It doesn't matter how well it's recorded or how well it's like. We can take the Big Unknown for that like example of that, because we didn't know what we were doing that well at that point. And the recording's okay, the production's okay. We still cringe at it a little bit now. Yeah. Like I know that I recorded the guitar and I put it out of phase. If you play Big Unknown on a mono speaker, the guitar is out of phase with itself. It disappears. And like it's got so many flaws to that track, yet it still gets played relentlessly. And we don't know why. Clearly people like it and they think it's a really good track. So
yeah, no, that's a good point. A really good sticking point. And I like the idea that like when you become a listener, like you always like put on your new ears, don't you? And you're like, yeah, I can listen to this objectively and like enjoy it.
That can take years though, I think. Good. Like as someone who writes music, I think that can take years to just be like, oh, this song that I thought was really crap that I wrote years ago, like it's actually quite good. Like, oh, you know, it's amazing that you can get sort of the listeners' ears on straight away or quite soon. That's amazing. I want to buy some.
So what can we expect from your next album, which is out in May, I believe?
May 28th.
Oh,
quite a big mix of stuff. I thought we were more not chilled, but a bit more down tempo. But then everyone that's listened to heard the sort of whole thing's like, no, it's banging. So much more upbeat and dancier. So,
but it's darker.
Yeah,
it's upbeat but darker.
It's got much darker undertones to it, and I guess there's still lots of dynamics in it. Again, there's lots of ups and downs and movement throughout the whole sort of album. But yeah, I think we've touched on a few areas where we haven't before.
We've definitely explored, I think, further into what we could achieve with this one. And yeah, quite wide variety of genres being mashed together.
We're really looking forward to it, and we're going to be following it and sharing everything to do with it. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys, I mean, if the whole world goes well, you're going to be in London in autumn, I believe.
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed, arms crossed, toes crossed.
Everything. Eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, we'll see you there.
Yeah, we'd love to see you. We'll see you. We'll meet you.
Yeah, come down for sure.
So usually we finish our interviews by asking our guests who they are listening to on repeat. But actually, I wondered if, as a group, there were any artists or bands that you listen to collectively that inspire your music.
I mean,
the crossovers.
Yeah, there is a lot. There is a lot that kind of all bleed in.
I mean, this album, it was a lot more, I don't know, Kate Bush?
Yeah, I guess it was.
You said Fleetwood Mac, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. I suppose it's like listening to music is more, we don't do it as much together in the same way.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, it's because we're making music most of the time now. Like this year, I haven't listened to much music at all. I've literally just been listening to our stuff and analysing it and going through the sessions and been like trying to not get too much outside influence. But
I think it's like on tour, we listen to a lot of music together.
Yeah, there's some classic albums that will always, like Caribou, Odessa is an album which was very defining for us all. Like we all share that one, and always like long drives. It's like it will come on at some point, guaranteed.
Daft Punk.
Little Dragon.
Yeah, their whole catalogue is always a shared one.
And what about individually then? So I'm just interested to sort of see if this varies at all. So Katie, who do you listen to? What are you listening to at the moment? What's on repeat?
We could do ones of like what we listen to that nobody else likes.
Yep.
Like when we're touring in the bus and I put what's it called?
I think this only applies to you.
Well, surely you listen to something.
Sorry, you go.
Like I listen to a lot of things like Popcorn and stuff that these guys are like, hey, can we listen to something else in the car? What have I been listening to a lot recently? A lot of like.
What was that thing you had on the other day? There was loads of cats just basically meowing. there was something we was on. You just had it on your laptop while we were working in the front room, and it just there was this album that kept coming round, and there was this song that
Japanese playlist.
Yeah. There's these little cats just like meowing in the background of it.
Actually, I think they might have been birds. I listen to a lot of Japanese music, which I'm biased because I'm just obsessed with anything that's Japanese. But these guys obviously are a bit like.
I don't mind.
You're
interesting. What do you mean listen to, Dave?
Well, the thing I'm milking at the moment is Kelly Lee Owen's album that she put out. And there's a track called Melt on it, which I just can't stop listening to. I don't know what it is. It's just like this great techno track. That I'm just like, that's full whack.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of, I don't know, soul and jazz and hip hop. A lot of like that sort of melodic hip hop as opposed to really Larry stuff. But I don't know, that's mainly what I listen to, I guess, in the spare time. But it is such a mixed bag of everything still. Disco.
Yeah, I'm a disco nut, really. I'm a massive disco nut. I had a phase like, I don't know how long, 7 years ago, where I was just buying every disco 12-inch I could get my hands on and just going to record fairs and just buying it all. And got really lost in that.
You're a good DJ, sis.
I like that your answers were as like diverse and different from one another as kind of like the music you make. So
I thought it would be. That's why I was so interested. Yeah. You lot have been really interesting to talk to. So thank you so much for sparing an hour of your time.
Yeah, super appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you. Great questions.
Clearly chat away for a lot longer.
Thank you so much to Elder Island for coming and chatting to us. Thank you so much for listening yourself. Don't forget to follow them on social, follow us on social, and drop a rating and review if you liked this episode. Be sure to go back and listen to some of our previous ones with some amazing guests. See you on the flip side.